Meta CTO Andrew Bosworth has done another Ask Me Anything on his Instagram account. He does these at least once a month. In the past, he's talked about stuff like why they removed the achievement system, what's going on with Reality Labs, which is their division that houses all of their game studios, and stuff like that. So I have not watched this all the way through yet. I will cut out anything about the Meta Ray Bans or AI specific that doesn't have to do with the Quest ecosystem, but anything having to do with the stuff that I find relevant, I'll just watch and react to it. Let's do it. This question is, what is your favorite current personal use case for Quest as of late?
I love going through all the content. And so I love, playing through Batman and the big games that come out. I also have a lot of time that I'm just dog fooding. I'm just trying new things. There'll be new content that we're working on or new elements of the shell. And lately, we've got some refreshes that we're doing to the UI and to the interactions there that are starting to roll out a little bit in parts. And that's been a major focus for me in headset, is just making sure those things are dialed. Sometimes the job's a lot of fun, sometimes it's a little more technical and work. So right now, that's what I've been spending my time on.
So you mentioned a couple of things there. One, it's nice to have him actually mention the fact that he plays a game. That's new. He mentioned a lot of what's now been leaked by Twitter user Lenanian as like the new navigator system. They've been talking for a while about doing a UI overhaul. They talked about this at like Connect last year. And then like new features, stuff like that. They're always rolling out new features. They added like the capture card feature, the multitasking feature, stuff like that. I would imagine in his current position that he ends up doing a lot of like beta testing for stuff that they want to show off, and he'll give notes and feedback and stuff like that. I'm actually curious how much he uses his Quest in his actual home, especially since Meta Ray Bans are kind of like the vogue thing at Meta right now. Nothing terribly interesting there other than we know the UI is coming, so no new news there. Next up, Meta AI on Ray-Ban is now in Europe. Is Meta AI on Quest coming too? What about voice typing?
I saw a lot of questions about this. The Meta AI on Ray-Ban Metas launching in Europe and just more broadly being available is something we're really excited about. I think if you're in Europe, understand it's not us, it's your regulators. If you don't believe me, I don't know what to tell you, that's what it is. So we're excited about that. It isn't as big a priority for us in Quest. It's not as heavily used. It's not as critical a part of the value proposition. So that's more of a best effort space. Whereas obviously on the Ray-Ban Meta side, we are pushing as hard as possible.
So you said a couple of things there. One, I wasn't aware that Meta AI, actually, I'm sorry, I did know that. I've seen it in Discords. Because I'm American, I don't really think about it. But Meta AI is not available in Europe because they've always talked about this. He's always mentioned this. Regulations are just different in Europe than they are here in North America. About stuff like privacy, and there's been a lot of discussion about AI usage and things like that. So it kind of stinks that in this ecosystem that they're trying to build, that they're having to roll out different features in different places. I mean, even now it's 2025 as I record this, and there's still multiple countries that you can't buy a Quest headset in. Those people have to import it. So there's always different bureaucracies and things to deal with. As far as AI being on Quest, the other tidbit that I took away from this is that he says specifically that is not a heavily used feature. I personally never used Meta AI on my Quest yet. I know it's been there for months, but it's just not something that I feel like I need to use because I don't really need to put on a headset to use AI when I have AI available on this PC, on my phone, so on and so forth. It's just not a use case that I want to put on my headset to do. Maybe in the future when headsets become more ubiquitous and people are using them every single day. But right now, I mean, it's still primarily a gaming device, and it's going to take them quite a bit of effort to change the perception of that. Next question, if Dolby Atmos is supported for browser, why isn't it supported for other programs? Dolby Atmos is basically 3D sound. That's the quickest way to explain what that is. Google if you want more technical information than that. But it's supported in the browser on Quest, but not for, like games and apps and YouTube and stuff like that. So here's this answer.
Yeah, this is actually something that you got to take up with your favorite streaming service. So when they deploy their app, they get to decide what kind of signal they're sending over. Obviously, the hardware supports it and the internet supports it. So it's just a question of their willingness to send it over. So talk to your services.
So similar to the Europe answer, he's talking about, like Netflix and YouTube, Twitch. Basically, those developers who built those apps have to actually build it into their native apps on Quest. And is the return on investment going to be there for them to do that? Yeah, it would make a more immersive experience for people who are watching movies in their headsets and videos in their headsets, but Is it going to be a widely enough used feature to make it worth the resources to add it into the app? I don't know. I don't know how much money it would cost in terms of like developer time to be able to do that. So honestly, my guess is we don't ever see that feature as far as native apps go. Next question, any chance of being able to view and control my Android phone from a Meta Quest 3 wirelessly in the future?
Yeah, Android has an API that they've allowed certain devices to take advantage of to mirror the Android phones. We'd love to have access to that and support that. And if you know anybody at Google, let them know. I've already told them, but maybe they'll listen to you instead.
So yet another go ask your other provider. We've reached out to them. They've been very upfront about the number of times that they've reached out to Google about getting like let's say the Google Play Store on Quest, and Google's not been willing to play ball because of now we know about their partnership with Samsung and the Android XR headset that they're going to launch, I think sometime this year, maybe. We're not exactly sure when that's going to happen. So with Quest being on the Android operating system, it would just make sense to be able to control your phone remotely. Unfortunately, aside from just plugging it into a capture card, they're saying we can do that with like any gaming console now. That's the only way you can actually view your phone inside your headset. So he pretty much put the onus on Android, and since Android's off doing their own thing with Samsung and Google, I don't really see this happening either. Next question, what's the biggest priority for Reality Labs at the moment?
Yeah, we've been pretty open about this since Connective last year. The opportunity that AI presents all of our devices is huge. And, you see that in practice with the Ray-Ban Metas, where you've really got a tremendous product made even better with the addition of AI. That's not the only place that we think AI can help. If you look at the tools that we're building into Horizon to take advantage and make the creator's job easier for these worlds that they're building, the experiences that they're building. And so, look, we have a lot of things that we're working on. A lot of them are very important, and we're a big enough organization and mature enough organization that we can do more than one thing at once. But for me, the big novel priority for this year is thinking through and in the implications of AI and making sure that we're taking advantage of the opportunities it presents.
No real shock there. The Meta Ray Bans have been an unexpected success for Meta. And now with them leaning so hard into AI, I mean, they're having the convention just for their AI module called LlamaCon. I think it's this summer. And then Meta Connect, of course, is in September or October, where last year was dominated by AI. It started with Quest 3S and they quickly got that out the way. And then within 30 minutes, they were talking AI for like the next hour and a half or something like that. So no shock that was the first thing that he went to. It would be nice for them to talk about another headset. But frankly, with all the rumors about Quest 4 not coming until 2026, I don't think they mentioned a single thing about headsets at Connect this year at all. Honestly, it'll just be probably some games that they have coming up. All those studios, they still have Twisted Pixel, hasn't put out anything. Armature hasn't put out anything since they acquired those studios. My guess would be one of those two studios puts out a game, and then everything else will be AI related pretty much through the rest of the year. Next question, what do you think is the sweet spot for resolution and frame rate capability in future HMDs?
I don't know if there's a sweet spot between those two things. I mean, just keep them going up and up and up. What is the balance? What makes a sweet spot is finding a balance, and the balance is between cost, certainly, color gamut, brightness, and those trade off against resolution and frame rate. Love to be that, you really can tell the difference between 60, 90, 120, and it's diminishing returns after that, but doesn't mean you can't notice if you get up to 240 or something like that. Likewise, resolution, you notice there's big turns when it comes to things like text legibility, but we found that there's a very, very high ceiling on how much changes in resolution are detectable. So the curves do flatten out. And the cost curves don't. The cost curves keep going. So there is these kind of balancing points. And that's what we have to keep dealing with.
Generally, VR headsets are games of compromise, and the headset that's best for you pretty much depends on what you're willing to compromise on. There are a lot of people in the Quest ecosystem who refuse to ever use a wire, and that wireless freedom is why they gravitate more towards a Quest headset or one of HTC's headsets, or the Pico, for instance. Whereas there are other people who are really sensitive to like compression artifacts when they play games, so they have to have a display port corded input. Those are the people who kind of like stick to the valve indexes. The Quest 3, I think, is a great headset because it is not a master of any one specific thing. It just kind of does just enough. It's just enough. It's just average in pretty much every spot to work for most people. Whereas if you want a more specialized headset, if you want a like bigger FOV, you go buy like a Pimax headset. But he's right in that there's a point of diminishing returns where you're not going to see as much of a difference. Whereas the cost to get yourself to like 240 hertz or 240 FPS, or like, you know, 5K per hour, something like that, the cost for that goes up exponentially. That's why the Apple Vision Pro is so expensive. That's why Pimax's headsets are so expensive. That's why a lot of the PCVR headsets are really expensive, especially these new high-res ones that are coming out. The Big Screen Beyond 2 is going to be $1,000, and that's just for the headset. You don't even get controllers with that because it costs a lot to get those really high fidelity experiences. And since Meta's all about trying to market to your average consumer, they've kind of balanced that cost to benefit ratio in terms of like their specs. I think they're always going to occupy that space. I can see them putting out another high-end headset down the line, but I think the Quest line pretty much won't go away because that value proposition is just too hard to resist. And then like hardcore enthusiasts can buy, you know, the $1,000 and $2,000 headsets. I don't think Meta really has an interest in playing in that market, honestly. If they put out a new Quest Pro headset, as is rumored, I honestly don't know if it ever gets the adoption that they're looking for. They can just leave that to the other companies. So that's it for the full AMA. Let me know down in the comments if you want me to keep reacting to these. He used to do a lot more gaming news, you know, like 1 or 2 years ago. But now as the Ray-Bans have gotten the popularity and Llama AI has taken off, these lean more in that direction. So if you want me to keep doing these, let me know down in the comments. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you on the next one.